Welcome to Season 7 of Wellness as a Way of Life for Women Building the Future. I'm Megan Swan, wellness coach, consultant, and strategist, here to champion visionary women who are shaping tomorrow. This season, we dive into holistic wellness practices, mindset shifts, and real life stories from women who are leading change in tech, entrepreneurship, and beyond. My mission is to help you integrate wellness into every facet of your journey, so much so that it feels like a way of life. So you can show up as your most vibrant and impactful self. You can be a part of the movement by subscribing to my Substack for exclusive wellness tools, inspiring interviews, and a thriving community of future builders. There is a free and soon-to-be paid option launching this fall. And if you enjoy this episode, share it with a friend who's building the future too. Welcome back to the podcast. My guest today believes that the most powerful thing a woman can do for her leadership is to go inward first. Katherine Patrullo is the founder of Luminite. I should have asked you about that one too. And the creator of Women of Impact, a year-long container for women who are ready to lead from a place of deep alignment rather than performance. Ooh, I like that. Her work draws on a decade of study in Taoist philosophy, Tantra, and Kundalini and energy medicine. And it centers on something I think a lot of high achieving women need to hear, that authentic expression isn't something you build from the outside in. It's an inside job. You cultivate it. And when you do, it changes everything, how you show up, how you lead, and the kind of impact you can actually make. So, Katherine, I'm glad you're here today. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, so without going like to the beginning of time, like give
Mhm.
us some of the catalysts of where you started to see this work in your own life and we're really passionate about bringing it forward for other women.
Absolutely. I feel like the work that I offer now is such a mirror to my own journey because what I found myself doing was really chasing fulfillment. So, this goes all the way back to right before I started college. I had a lot of big life shifts and it really took me off of my center. So, all of this confidence that I thought that I had built, this worth, this comfort in my own being got shaken. And it really illuminated for me that none of that was within me. It was all based on external circumstance. So I started to explore, okay, how can I bring these things into my life? And now, granted, this was a bumpy ride. So I really started being like, oh, if I get the right partner, right job, right city, right friend group, I'll be able to prove all the things that I don't like about myself, everything that I'm feeling, all the shadows wrong. And I'll just be able to sit in this place of immovable bliss and abundance and fulfillment and, very 20-year-old of me to think that this was just going to be a static state that I could achieve. And even when I started my internal exploration, that was very much the goal of, okay, when can I be good enough to get all these things and maintain them? And so I started exploring all of these different modalities and healing techniques because, one, my chase for fulfillment and all the things I was trying to achieve wasn't working in the external. The external was not moving for me. I just kept hitting rock bottom after rock bottom. And so I turned to, okay, let's look at the self, let's look at self transformation, but very focused on manifestation. How do I call it in? How do I get it? How do I hold it? And that started cycling me in this loop of feeling really supported by the work that I was doing and the things that I was learning. And I have studied so many different modalities and really dipped into a lot of different schools of thought. And what I teach now are the ones that deeply shifted me and deeply impacted me. But when I started, everything was based on, okay, here's the parts of myself I don't like. How can I get rid of them? And so I'd feel really supported, and then I would go into my life and something would happen. So either I would feel rejection or the thing that I wanted, that job that I was pursuing, didn't turn out. And I would go right back into the loop of, okay, what is wrong with me? Oh, these parts of myself must be right because look at how the world around me isn't showing up for me. And it wasn't until I kind of allowed myself to hit that deep rock bottom of, if nothing changes, what do I need here to make this livable and okay and tolerable, that I actually started to see deep shifts happening in my life. So when I stopped focusing on what's going to bring me fulfillment and kind of pressed that radical pause button of, okay, fulfillment isn't coming, what can I bring in? I was able to start to build this relationship with myself that I hadn't had. So I became more deeply embodied. And through that embodiment, I became really aware of where I was shutting down and where I was holding myself hostage to outcomes. And so I learned how to work with the self and the human experience. And then from there, I began to explore, okay, when I feel resourced and I can play this game of, I can come back to me, I can reset me, and now I can step forward into the external and take what it's giving me and either heal with it or grow with it. I then started to really focus on, how do I create from this place? How do I create things of substance that really mirror the deep nourishment that this work has given me? And that is what ultimately led me piece by piece to this offering of Women of Impact. I've been working one-on-one with women for about 3 years now. This is my first year of Women of Impact, but each year really shows a different level and a different depth of this work because it's been growing as I've deepened my relationship with these practices and as I've seen the power that these practices hold within them.
Hmm. So let's focus specifically on leadership and
Mm-hmm.
how maybe if you can talk to like the women that show up for you or to look for your support, like what are they getting wrong in what leadership is and therefore feeling like maybe it's not unfulfilled, maybe it's like they just don't feel confident in what it needs to look like.
Yeah, I would say that the biggest disconnect that I am seeing in people who come to me to work with me is that, we are taught a very linear approach to progress and leadership, where, if you follow the path laid out for you, you get a certain number of promotions, and then you hit this certain space, and then you can exert change and influence. And that is, just a step by step process that we all go through. And they people do tie in fulfillment to those different achievements, or maybe create a sense of purpose or self at a different stage where it's like, okay, this is the promotion where I'm really going to feel connected to what I'm doing or feel purposeful in the work that I'm offering or be able to make the changes that I am so called to make. And unfortunately, that is not how most trajectories are laid out for us. So it usually, women come to me when they've hit that certain point and they're asking that question of, okay, everything that I thought would be here isn't here, and I don't know how to bring in what I thought this would be. And so that's really where I start to work with people. So this can be women who are working within a traditional corporate structure and have hit that point where they really are ready to make an impact and make shifts, or women who are stepping outside a corporate structure. So maybe they are launching their own company or stepping into a purpose-driven kind of creation of their own. It's all at that point where, okay, I thought this was the thing, but what I thought this thing held isn't actually there. And so what we're really getting wrong about placing these senses of deeper impact, purpose, fulfillment, whatever you're looking for in one thing, is that we're not building that connection in the self. And when we don't have a clear sense of, okay, this is what I'm going to offer and this is how I'm going to step forward in doing that, it can be really confusing when we get to places where we think we can open up that offering and we maybe don't have the pathways or we don't know how to move forward in the direction of where we desire. So that's really where people are coming to me, and that's where we start the work of where are you, and then where's the disconnect. Because what we're seeing in current leadership is that it's very linear and it's very strategy based, where it's like, okay, here's how we move the cogs in the wheels. That's your one strategy. And really, what we're seeing is that when we want to make impact and we want to make seismic shifts, and we know that there is a deeper sense of offering that we can put forward, we have to start looking at things differently, and we have to start by working on our internal world, seeing where our blocks are, seeing where we're holding ourselves back, and seeing really where we want to start directing that influence of change. And that's where we begin to really start to reshape leadership.
Yeah. So I'm hearing that at the end of the day, if you're wanting to step in, have influence, feel like you're actually owning whatever this, perceived next level, whether it's promotion, whether it's credentials, whether it's, placement of some ability to have deeper impact or change, that's all going to fall flat if it's coming from this external, like I've earned it because of these external, XYZ markers versus finding an internal sense of self that has earned it, like whatever that means, earned it, or yeah, like you feel like you've met that credential, but it's not a credential that somebody's, given you. It's something that you've built up with these practices. And I'd love if you go into, is it a layered approach? Do you have someone focus on one thing and then master that and then another? And particularly Tantra, because I think that's generally speaking a misunderstood term of what that might mean in something like this, leadership coaching.
Absolutely. And first, just to build off what you said, it's yes, the internal piece must be built within, and there aren't going to be things that hold our internal desires fully within them. So it is beautiful to manifest something, to receive something, but yes, there is this internal piece of we have to hold it within us to be fully nourished by it and not feel like it's something that can constantly be shifted on us. Or if I don't have this title, this offering, this whatever it may be, I lose that sense of my identity and of myself. But on top of that, we also are seeing a lot of growth be done in a way that doesn't nourish the individual or the offering. So, working with a lot of women, the corporate structure can be very taxing and draining. And a lot of women I work with have experienced extreme burnout, maybe are actually having physical symptoms of like, okay, my body is saying we cannot do this anymore. And so a lot of this work also focuses on how do we nourish leadership and how do we empower nourishing offerings to come out into the world. So much of conscious development is understanding that creation is actually a cycle. It is not a linear concept of, okay, I created this and now I have to focus on creating the next thing and the next thing. That is only focusing on like peak outward expenditure versus going internal, nourishing the self, learning from the lessons that are coming your way as you're building. And we can do that on a personal and professional level. So that is also a huge point in this work is really diving into, yes, I can bring in and cultivate internally what I am desiring to achieve, but I can also learn how to achieve while being personally nourished and creating nourishment around me. So whether that's in a corporate climate or in your own creation, this is much a function of nourishing creation. So I wanted to just highlight that because I think it's also such an important piece. And then as we explore how this work works, so it's one-on-one for a year. So it's very, very customized to each person because everyone is going to come in with a different level of skill and different points of resistance, which we all have, no matter how deep you are in this work. I mean, there may be people who are, just like grand masters of this work who don't feel resistance, but I would say most people we all have different levels of expansion and then resistance, those points of self that feel really tough to contend with. So it's very customized. But where I typically start with an individual is rebuilding that connection to the self and finding a safe space in the body. I find that as a society, we are really taught to be very in the head, especially in the West. It's a very mind dominant society where, it's kind of like mind over matter, just get through it. And that really disconnects us from the wisdom of the body. And it can also create, when we've disconnected from the body, a deep sense of lack of safety. And so when something needs to move through the body, if we don't have safety to go in, to experience, to feel, this work will fall flat because you'll only be able to skim the surface of those feelings, of that process. So typically, most of the work starts with generating safety and then builds to emotional expression, emotional release. How do we release the pain points of the past so that we can really learn how to move through what we're experiencing and alchemize it in a really productive way? And then you can also step into things like expanded states of awareness, learning how to access those emotions, those versions of self that feel out of reach, and then integration. How do you bring those in? How do you live in that place of all these things that you're learning? And so it all comes together in a slightly different way, but that is a very generalized overview of the approach. And then to answer the final part of your question, how does Tantra play into this? Because yes, Tantra is very misunderstood. And Tantra means to weave. So when I started my self exploration, one of the first teachers that I sought out was a Tantra teacher because I had been looking and looking and looking for schools that allowed me to embrace the human experience fully. And nothing really felt quite right. And then I found Tantra, which really is that we are meant to weave this human experience into our spiritual experience. So, Tantra means to weave, and it's shown as the loom. So, we have above and below, and then the earthly experience weaving through that. And so, although Tantra does work with sexual energy, that is primarily because sexual energy is some of the most potent life force energy that we possess. And so, if we have blocks in our sexual energy, opening that up and liberating that can just lead to more life force moving through our bodies. But the practice itself and a lot of the modalities that I have studied really focus on freely allowing emotions to express, to process, to heal, to integrate, and to open someone up to allow this life force energy to move through them. So, when it comes to integrating tantric practices into conscious creation, it really is the art of learning how to weave what is happening around you, what is happening within you, into your healed, whole, divine experience, and then activate your most potent life force energy while navigating what is around you.
Mm. Yeah. I think, like you said, that the ways that one can utilize or process or channel sexual energy are also kind of misunderstood, or it's like a surface level assumption that it always has to be in a sexual context versus just really tapping into what that potent energy can do. I think maybe women can understand that more easily, and that we are creators. Like any sort of project, anything that we're incubating really does feel like that same energy and passion behind it. So what are some things that you, I guess, are seeing in the ecosystem, if you will, that are not correct, or again misunderstood, or like leaned on too much? You kind of mentioned manifestation without like any of this other work is going to fall flat. Is there anything else that you're seeing that has a lot of hype and not a lot of sustenance?
Yeah, I think that with manifestation, I love manifestation because I think that understanding that we can be conscious creators is really important, and feeling like, ooh, I can collaborate with the universe is beautiful. And it's also a beautiful entry point to so many other aspects of spirituality. Like I said, I have found such great depths in this work because it started with exploring manifestation. And so I think that there's value, but I think that it's not that there's one school that's particularly overhyped. I would say integration is maybe a little bit underhyped, where, okay, why are we doing all this shadow work? Why are we taking these breathwork practices to reach expanded states of awareness and then coming back and going into our daily lives and not able to get out of our patterns? I felt like that was such a big hiccup in my journey, where if I could go back and kind of tell myself something a decade ago, this is what I would go back and say, which is, when we do these practices to understand, to clear, to expand, it's not that it's going to be something that immediately fixes everything. Our brain is still wired in a certain way. Thought patterns are still going to turn up. We might even feel physical sensations because there may be some charge left in the body. But when we can understand that, okay, we do these big practices to really deep clean and clear out and bring to the surface whatever is there, or to touch that version of self that feels so unattainable, our job is to then bring it into every little aspect of our day. And this is something that I don't know if my clients love it or hate it, but it is a practice I give everyone, and it does help really ground these ideas. But I am a big person in, okay, when you've reached that state of, oh my gosh, I feel so open, I feel so liberated, that practice brought me into my radiance, brought me into my wholeness, like I feel that expanded sense of self. Cool. Then you are going to find that every single day, and you're going to consciously take note of where that is showing up in your life. And the same thing with your shadow. If there's a narrative that you're like, oh my gosh, I now understand why I've been holding that, every time it comes up in your day to day, it's then the process of, okay, let me sit with this, let me take a breath around it, and let me just send a breath to it, let me move it and let it clear. And then ask yourself, what decision do I want to make? What do I do when I'm not this story? What is the new story I'm putting in? Because it's those micro movements towards the new version of self that I have found have made the most significant impact in my life. And so there is so much room for so many practices. And I'm a big believer of, the ones that resonate with you will be the medicine that you need. But it's bringing that mindset of practice into every single day and really activating that change in your lived experience that I would say has really made substantial change in my life. And so I would say integration is just a practice that I would love to see spoken about more, championed more. And it's not glamorous, but it is life changing.
Yeah. So, I mean, just to kind of like what we're talking about is this feeling that so many women have. And I mean, I think it's not just women, but let's focus on women
Mm-hmm.
because I think it's more socialized into us to like
Mm-hmm.
seek these external sources of validation. And so, like, maybe, it's like when I graduate X, I'm going to feel Y. When I get this job, I'm going to feel the next thing. And oftentimes you get there and there's like literally 10 seconds of that bliss feeling that you mentioned that you've like maybe been anticipating for a decade even, and then it's like it's gone, it's so fleeting. And so arriving at this, like, you find a new practice and so you can rediscover that sense of whatever it is that you feel like this next level or life achievement is going to grant you, in order to really bring that into your life in a solid way. It's not just a one and done, and not just like during the session with you, but in fact requires us to really slow down and just find those like micro moments where it's no fault of your own because you were indoctrinated for so long to think and feel the other way that you're going to default to, waiting for the next whatever external thing to allow yourself to feel the validation or the bliss or whatever it is that you're seeking outside of you. And those micro decisions on how you want to show up become or can become little by little a little bit more of a default. But again, it's like this, like any practice in any modality, it's not like you meditate for a year and then you're good for
Mm-hmm.
40. Like these are all things that you need to find a way. And I like that we are aligned on that, granting permission that like find the one that's your personal medicine. And I deeply believe that will likely shift over space and time, decades of your life, seasons of your life, business, like as a woman, all these things, so that it really can become a part of who you are
Mm-hmm.
and not just this quote unquote practice. Like you feel like it's so integrated that it's just you.
Absolutely. And practice is such a massive thing. So I have sat in, I remember there was one time I was doing 2.5 hours of chanting Long Cars, which is a very, very traditional practice in Kundalini yoga. And the first time I sat to do it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be amazing. I'm going to feel so tuned. And the entire practice was like every negative thought that I had about myself coming up. And I got off the mat and I was like, what was that? And I had this desire to kind of shut down, be like, oh, that was a bad practice. I don't know if I like this meditation, kind of just, push it away. But luckily, this happened when I had been doing this work for so long. And so I took a pause and I was like, okay, what is coming up here for me? So that practice was this deep clearing of so much that I wasn't fully processed in yet. And so I was able to then take a moment with everything that it brought up and do that deeper healing. And then it was my job to carry that into the rest of the day, where it's like, okay, where are these thoughts coming in? Where am I kind of being a little mean to myself or shutting myself down? And so that's when integration becomes so powerful, because sometimes when we expand, it's like, oh, I want to keep that version of me forever. And like, where did it go? I know that was also something I really faced a lot of, where I would feel amazing and then something would break that beauty and I'd be like, oh no, it's gone. Okay, I gotta, go back to fixing myself. We're back to square one. And the ego is a tricky thing. It wants to stay alive, and our body wants to keep us in homeostasis. If it thinks we're alive, it's like we're not changing. And so it's that gentle process of being like, we're actually safe to be in this new modality. We're safe to be this open, this loving, this joyous. And then along with the shadow piece, it's okay, these are all at the surface because I open the space to heal them. And it is in that integration, that subtle step by step, that really allows us to receive the deepest nourishment from all these practices that we're doing. So a lot can come up. And it's just the practice of, cool, I'm going to stay in alignment with this path no matter what comes up. And I'm going to resource myself as needed and support the integration of the good and the shadowy, or the parts that are a little bit harder to move through.
Yeah. So ultimately, it all just feels much less fragile.
Absolutely. I feel like this work really builds this deep sense of inner resourcefulness where it's like, okay, I can move through what is coming up because I am safe and I have built the bandwidth to do so. And there may be times where it comes up where it's like, oh, okay, I see where maybe I need a little more bandwidth. Like that seems really scary. I'm going to go into creating a little bit more safety around it to dive all the way in. And then it also creates a radical sense of self responsibility where it's like, okay, I have these tools, I have this support. Now, when I step forward to make change, I can do that from this place of knowing that I have resourced myself, I have built that internal structure, and so I can do this monumental change or micro change, whatever that may be.
Yeah. I'd love just before we wrap up, because you've said
Mhm.
resourced and like because I'm in this world, I understand what you mean, but
Mhm.
can you like unravel that a little bit and give someone who's maybe done none of this kind of somatic type work, what could that look like? Feeling resourced.
Absolutely. So, when we discuss trauma, because I would say that a lot of the times, the first time we get tested in our own resourcing is when a strong emotion comes up, or maybe a memory of something that is really, really charged for us arises. We need to know that trauma occurs when the nervous system experiences something that it does not have the tools to handle at the time. So, trauma can be one massively impactful experience, or it can actually be the buildup of many experiences over time that eventually wears down our nervous system to where we create coping mechanisms. And so, one of my like cheat codes to healing, because this changed the game for me, is when we can look at our coping mechanisms with a sense of gratitude and love, because they came in to support us at a time where we did not have tools, we did not know how to handle the charge in our body, and it said, let me calm this down for you, let me shut this down. It helps us move them a little bit faster because we're not fighting them. It's not like, I hate that I do this, I hate that I check out or become disembodied. It's like, okay, I know I needed this at one point in my life. Let me give myself some compassion and grace and offer a bit of appreciation to, hey, I know you held me down when I didn't know how to. You can let go now. But when we understand that that's how our trauma gets created and that's how our coping mechanisms come to be, we then focus on what I first mentioned, that safety piece. How do we create a sense of safety in the body and a sense of safety with the emotions that we don't feel comfortable experiencing or that maybe feel too big for our nervous system? So, when we talk about resourcing, it's all of the practices that allow us to experience what we are processing more fully to actually release it from the body. So, a lot of practices are about just finding that sense of safety, connecting to the breath. Our breath is such a powerful tool. And when we're in emotionally charged states, it becomes really shallow. So, it's not as deep of a tool. So, how do we regulate? How do we calm our nervous system down and actually begin to understand that it is safe to go into places that we maybe didn't feel safe in before, or it's safe to enter into a state of being that we're not sure exactly what that looks like yet. So, resourcing are the tools that allow our body to experience newness or to experience emotions in their fullest capacity.
Yeah. So, I mean, the breath is a really great one. It can be really like anything of the five senses. It could be a positive memory. It could be, a view of somewhere that you love or that felt really safe as a child.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I love how you kind of unpacked all the ways that trauma can be kind of showing up and a core type of resistance in this type of work is whatever you're dealing with. For me, um yeah, that bringing in for me, that coping mechanism that served me and then didn't serve me was alcoholism. I'm
Mm-hmm.
8 years sober, and it was that final piece for me allowing my to make the decision to quit drinking was exactly that, like
Mm-hmm.
bringing it in, deep gratitude for the teenage girl that didn't have a better system, a better tool. So I love all that. So what's the best way for people to connect with you if they're wanting to learn more?
Absolutely. Thank you. And congratulations on your sobriety. That's amazing. 8 years. Wow.
Thanks.
Um, so if you want to connect with me, follow me on Instagram. My handle is at Katherine Patrullo. And you can always book a call. There's a link to call in my bio. And I offer 30-minute exploratory calls to see what aligns with you and what works with you.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for all your wisdom today. And yeah, I'm sure like the work that you're doing is so important. And we want women to be as powerful and impactful as possible. And this is such an important conduit to that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure talking with you today. And just, yeah, thank you for having me on.
Thanks so much for tuning in to Wellness as a Way of Life for Women Building the Future. I'm Megan Swan, and I'm honored to support your journey to well-being and leadership. For more insights, resources, and connections, subscribe to my Substack through the link in this episode. It is your go-to hub for wellness strategies, and there's free and premium content. Let's keep building a brighter, healthier future together. Until next time, take care and lead well.